and we'll get started. Okay.
All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Molika. I was actually one of Task Force students. I ended up actually going back to work, well, actually I should say going back to school a year ago, and completed my project management certificate. I decided to actually change careers, and that was when I actually applied for my PMP. So Pat had asked me to cover what it takes to prep for PMP certification. I actually have my PMP, and I also have my CSN, which is Certified Scrum Master, which is in Agile Project Management. The agenda that we're going to be covering is applying for the PMP certification. I'll be covering an overview of the PMP credential, study for PMP, showing you a process chart, and also covering what you should be studying, at least some of it, and then also what you're going to expect when you go to take the PMP exam. To actually apply for the PMP certification, you have to do that through the PMI, which is the Project Management Institute. I've actually given Pat, it has a URL up here, which you can share with you later. So what that does is I've actually put in the requirements here, and some of the educational background. If you're going to go for a PMP, you're required to have at least an associate's degree or a high school diploma, and if you do have that, then you need at least a minimum of 5 years or 16 months of unique, non-overlapping professional project management experience. That will mean that you actually have to show that you have 7,500 hours of either leading a project or actually directing a project. This will also include 35 hours of contact, I should say, they call it contact hours, but it's actually education, past class, or any of the other project classes that you may be taking qualify that. So one unit would actually qualify for one of those contact hours. If you have a 4-year degree, then you only need 3 years or 36 months of the experience as far as non-overlapping professional project management experience, which accounts for also you will have to prove that you have 4,500 hours of project experience, either leading or directing the project. I did include, because I don't know everybody's experience here, but I did include the CA45B. What that is a certified associate in project management. That one only requires a high school diploma, and it also requires 1,500 hours of experience or only 23 hours of education in the project management. I should say different courses that you may be able to take. Mission College does qualify as one of the schools that PMI recognizes for the educational unit. When applying for the PMP or even the CAPM, it does cost quite a bit to actually apply for this. What you're going to be doing is when you go to apply for this, you'll probably be taking the test as what they consider the CBT. So you'll be doing that probably through a forensic testing facility, which most people do. For the PMP, if you're a PMI member, it means that you've joined the PMI. And then normally if you join the PMI, you don't have to. People usually join the chapter. And the actually closest chapter that we have to, I think, the Silicon Valley chapter. For a member, it's only $405 for the application, $225 if you're going for the CAPM. For non-members, it's $555, $300 for the CAPM. It's a little bit cheaper when you actually have to go and renew, which is once every 3 years that you have to renew your certification. When you actually end up renewing, as long as you have the 60 units that you're required for your PMP, the educational units done, you will not have to redo the test. If you let your certification expire, you will be retaking the test in order to get that certification back. Current membership right now is $129 to join, plus a $10 application fee, which is a one-time fee. If you're a student, would be the best time right now to join. It would be $32 plus the $10 application fee, and then on top of that, for the membership for the individuals, $25, but for student is $18. So this would be the best time, let's say, to join while you're still a student. To give you an idea of the timeline that you would follow to actually go and apply for your PNP, you would go and you would submit the application. You have 90 days to complete the application unless you start it. Normally what will happen is you're going to collect all your hours that you worked as a lead in a project or as an actual project manager. And what you do is you'll separate it out. I'll show you a spreadsheet later on how you separate out all your different hours. And then when you submit this empty application online, you have up to 90 days to complete it once you start. And then once you actually complete the application, it goes in for review. And that takes pretty much sometimes 5 days, sometimes a little bit longer depending on how busy they are. But I think I had mine back actually in 40 days. Once you go through that in the application, then you at the same time you will pay for the $405. I think that was for the PNC at that time. If you happen to be one of the lucky ones and your application is chosen to be audited, you will actually receive an email letting them know that you have 90 days to send in whatever they're asking you for. Pretty much when you go to apply on the application, not only are you getting your hours, but you are also getting contact for people that will actually vouch for the project management experience that you have. And what will happen is the PMI, somebody will actually contact each one of those individuals to verify whether or not you actually did the work that you claimed that you did. And then, of course, if there's anything that they want out as far as any additional work, or they might want you to send something in, they'll let you know at that time. Once your application has been accepted, they will send you an email. They will also let you know that you have, from that date, when you actually apply, I don't think it is for the audit period, you have 1 year to take the exam. You have up to 3 times to be able to take that and pass within that 1 year period. Once you pass that, again, you have 3 years that your certification is good. And you will have to take up to at least 60 units, whether it's looking at college units or actually through the PMI Silicon Valley chapter. They offer several different events throughout the month, whether it's an evening program or they might have different courses that you can go with. They call it tools and techniques that you'll be able to go to, and sometimes they're, it only costs like $10 to go to that for the tools and techniques. They cover different applications, and they also cover different programs that try to enhance your project management experience. It could be from dealing with difficult people all the way to doing an actual application. That's the chapter will offer. Once you go and you take one of these courses, you just fill out the application online and through the PMI, and what that does is you'll vouch saying that you actually did this and you send in the information and you actually add those credits to the PDU. And then once you have your CDUs, as they call it. Within that 3-year cycle, you'll be able to reapply for your certification again and then just pay for that research there. Anybody have any questions so far?
Lynn, I have a question. I think you might be getting to this, but I think did you take some kind of course to prepare for the PMP, and did that get counted toward any units for you?
Yes, I actually did. I took 2 boot camps. The chapter, the Silicon Valley chapter of PMI, actually offered through a discount. It was, I believe, around $500 to take. It's not the boot camp that you take, but they'll go through the different things within the PMBOK and tell you how to study, give you different ideas on what you should be looking for to study for to be able to take this exam. I was able to get actually 35 units for that, or PDUs as they call it, to add towards the application. I also later ended up actually doing a different type of boot camp, which was through PM Study, that I found that helped me a little bit more with the different things. It's in a small class frame where you probably have the most is 7 or 8 people. They do not let the class size go any larger than that. So you're there with the instructor, and you're there for 4 days that you actually spend the entire 4 days working in what they call the boot camp setting. You go to class starting early in the morning, you're out by 3:30, 4 p.m., and you have a lot of homework. So they're showing you and they're actually teaching you how to study for this exam. But part of this, which I'll cover on the exam part, this exam, some of the questions are very situational, as they call it, and what that means is it's going to draw upon your experience. You cannot just memorize everything. There's just too much information there. So they're trying to take or teach you how to take the information and the experience that you have and be able to apply that to this exam.
Okay.
How many years did there's a question here. How many years did you work in the project management before you took the exam? I had, as far as training for that, I would probably say I would have around 10 years. I only claimed at the time probably 8.5 that I gathered my knowledge from, that I was truly working in project management. My background is IT, so I handled a lot of IT as far as data or telecom projects. And the last year before the exam, or before I actually went back to school full time, I actually worked as a program manager, continuously setting up different projects within the company.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Did that answer your question there, Shakir? I think it did. So. Oh, okay. I think he lost his connection there.
So, studying for the PMP, some of the things that I can recommend for materials, one would be the PMI, Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge. That's what we call the PMBOK guide. The current version is the 4th edition. I would recommend that you read through this book from front page to last page. From the beginning of the book, they will actually cover in the exam. Anything that you see there is actually, could be on the exam and could be one of the questions that you need to see. When you read through this book, some of it's going to make sense, some of it you're going to think is just common knowledge. But what you're actually training yourself to learn is what they call PMI. You're learning all the different words that they use and how they use the different ones. The PDM, I guess, would be one that I can kind of relate if you have some of the project classes. We call it Arrow on Network, the AON. PMI actually calls it PDM. So there are some differences, and you'll need to know those differences in the acronyms that they do have, because what you're learning at the college isn't necessarily what PMI expects you to know, because they consider Arrow on Network or AON to be, I don't know, I guess old, kind of old school, where the PDM is the new acronym for it. Once you go through the PMBOK guide and read through that, a lot of people find reading McCaughey's PMP exam script, which the current release, the 7th edition, to be very helpful. Within the book, it also has some flashcards that you can actually cut out and be able to study from those flashcards. You're going to need to learn all the processes, and there's a total of 42 of those processes. What you'll probably start out with is, once you start memorizing those processes, and once you know those and you're able to write those on a blank piece of paper, the next thing that you'll be doing is you're actually going to have to learn from the PMBOK guide each one of those processes and how they tie together. There are also multiple formulas that you will need to know, and you'll need to be able to utilize them to different questions. There are test questions that you can pull from reading McCaughey's PMP book that you'll be able to use. If you have a smartphone, there are some apps. Some are free, some are maybe a couple dollars that you can get onto your smartphone to be able to test yourself. If you go searching on the internet, you can find different sites that will allow you to be looking up PMP questions that they may allow you by giving your email address actually access or do a maybe 200 question test for free. So you can also try those out. One of the things that really helped, especially that I did on the second attempt that I did, is getting a really large piece of paper, sheet paper, and I actually drew out the 42 processes along with all these different lines of connections from the top of the scope all the way down to the pyramid, and you can see how everything actually ties together. It's almost like, they always say a picture, picture says about 1,000 words or something like that. This has really helped when you're able to actually see this laid out instead of reading from chapter to chapter on each one of these processes. Once you start reading the book, go through that, you'll learn the processes, the initiating, the planning, the executing, the monitoring and controlling, and the closing. And then you also have 10 knowledge areas. It's integration management, scope management, time management, cost management, quality management, human resource management, communications management, risk management, and procurement management. One of the things that, as of August 31st, 2011, PMI changed the exam. They used to have what they call ethics in a completely separate section. That is no longer the case. They now include it within each one of those knowledge areas. So those questions will actually be part of that. Once you go and you memorize those processes, you also need to understand and memorize the different formulas and be able to work those different formulas. It is explained not only in the PMBOK guide, but in Rita's book also explains that. And then, as I mentioned before, creating flashcards is a great way to learn too, and helping you memorize things. Having a study partner also helps to be able to study, to ask each other questions. That also helps with the study. Any questions?
Any questions, you guys? Did you find some of the business classes and maybe the classes you took at Mission, was it helpful especially in the 10 knowledge areas? Did it help you there, or was it more through studying the PMBOK and the other material?
I found the main project management class to be very helpful. The applied, not so much. I found that everybody has different experiences, especially with different instructors in different classes. I found the applied project management at Mission to be kind of not so helpful, not when it came to studying for the PMP. But the project management one, where we actually did a project, that actually helped tremendously with adding to what I was doing here in the study, because I was able to relate that to what we did. The process chart here is kind of an example of what I was mentioning to place onto. These are the 42 processes. You should be able to dump from memory this chart along with the formulas before starting the questions for the exam. One of the things with this exam is that you have 15 minutes that you can either do the CBT, which is the key-based training, the CBT on, you're sitting in front of a monitor and you have your keyboard and you're in like this little cubicle that you don't see from side to side. You're just sitting in the chair. This is how the exam is going to take this exam. You can go and either spend the 15 minutes having the system go through showing you how to take the test, which pretty much is that you just put your name in, you type, you move forward, and then a timer actually starts. Or you spend the 15 minutes writing down, as we call it, dumping from memory, the 42 processes along with the formula, and that's what's recommended. There isn't too much to taking the exam, because if you've taken anything online, you'll have a question, then you just move the arrow and click onto the next one. It'll just say next, and then you go to the next question once you've chosen what you feel is the correct answer. As with any test, you want to, they normally say, the first thing that you come up with that you feel is the correct answer, you choose. You really don't want to change your answer, because usually the first one is normally the correct one. And when you start thinking that, no, maybe I should have chose this one, or maybe I should have chose that one, usually when you start making mistakes. On this chart, it has a little blue circle under planning that shows the different processes. Primarily, these are all outputs for management plan for all marked processes. Some of it doesn't make sense now, or what I'm speaking about, it will once you start studying this and you really get to know this. All the processes which begin with develop or create have the main output sitting as what was mentioned in the process. So it will be the primary output will be anything that you see that says develop or create will be within that management process. So what I mean by that is an example would be process integration. Develop a project chart, and means that your output will be right there within that square, within that integration management process. Where if it doesn't have the develop or the create, the output actually could fall somewhere else within the 10 knowledge areas or the 5 process areas. The WBS, which is some of you have been doing that, you've already created that. That is the same with the output there. That will stay within the area for developing the scope and in that section within the planning. Most of your processes do follow or fall under the planning section. That's where I think most of the emphasis on the examiners is in the planning. They want to make sure that you really understand and know how to plan a project from beginning to end. For most monitoring and controlling processes, inputs include the WPI, which is the work performance information, and then relevant plan documents, which is the output script for include change requests, which can be preventive actions, corrective actions, defect repair, or other requested changes. So under the monitoring and controlling, that's for any type of change request that's put in like through a company that they might have to do some work, whether a project would be considered somebody changing out a server within a data center within a company. That can be considered a project in every aspect, from deciding on which server to purchase, to the procurement portion, the planning section, everything all the way to installing, testing. After that, the time period that you might wait to see that everything is okay, closing out all the paperwork, making sure all invoices are paid, and then finally closing the project itself. And right near the end is when you have your, it would be as far as the project closure to see whether there's any lessons learned that you may need. And then you go, and depending on the company, some companies will actually keep track of lessons learned. So any projects that you may go to that are similar in the future, that you'll be able to go and take a look at those lessons learned so you don't make the same mistakes over again. Any questions?
There's one below there, Lynn.
Is this chart from the PIN box? No, it is not. It's actually from the PM study that from the boot camp that I took. But all the information is in the PIN box. It's just been, some of the things have been added to, such as the red lines that you see the scope statement. It's been separated out for you. Continuing with the process chart, these are the formulas that you will need to know. For the earned value calculations, the formula for SV, CV, and EV, which is the earned value, the cost variance, and then also the scheduled variance, regarding the calculus, as for the first term. The positive variance is always the schedule variance, and the cost variance are good. So if you have a positive on any of these numbers in your formula, that's always a good thing. If you have a negative, you're going to know that it's always a bad thing. Sometimes these can get confusing depending on how they're going to ask these questions. They do have trick questions. So if you don't understand any of the formulas very well, you can actually get a little caught up and actually miss some of the questions during the exam. All the ratios have an earned value at first term. What that means is always at the beginning of the formula. And the ratios are that are greater than 1, such as the CPI or the SPI. Those are good. Anything below 1 is considered bad. An example would be that good would be that your project is within budget and it is on time. That is a good thing. If it's over budget, and if it's behind schedule, then usually the ratios are below, and that's considered a bad thing. But there's always different tricks and different things that you can do to actually get a project back on track, even if you start running behind. And if you're the project manager for that project, you're going to have some time or a little bit of an extra budget then to help with any unknowns that you may not know about. You can, with any project, you can plan only so well, but you're always going to run into something that you don't know. That's why when you go and start a project, you pick out the team that you feel is going to help you succeed in that project. Sometimes within a project, you're not always going to have that capability, and your team has already been chosen for you. So you try to work with what you have or the resources you have. Do you use Microsoft Project for this? Yes, you do. I do for some of the companies that I have been in, but I also have used Excel. Not every company has, some companies do use Microsoft Project, some don't, and it's going to depend on the company where you're at on whether or not they utilize this. An example would be, I'm actually, where I work, I'm on site at Chevron, but I'm actually a contractor on site. I work for a different company, but I'm permanently based on their site, and they use what they call ChipFit. So they don't use Microsoft Project. They actually have a specialized program that actually has been written for them, and they have their own different way of doing projects. But when you come down to it, the standard or the PMI, it's pretty much the same. So if you understand how PMI does the project, and you understand, especially with Microsoft Project, how that works and every functionality of that application, that will actually help tremendously, not only with your projects, but actually with this exam. Because some of the questions that I found that were asked during that exam, I would think back to how did I actually set that up when I went to set up my project? How was I actually setting up my time frame or utilizing my resources? Did I have anything that was overlapping? If I had to have any equipment, which is also considered a resource besides people, was it maybe being utilized by another project manager during the time frame that I needed, or did I actually schedule that out so I could utilize that? So you actually see some of the questions that may come up that you might think back of what you've done even in your project class. Any other questions? I've separated here the different knowledge areas and what you should be looking at to study. And for the first one would be the project management framework. You're going to need, and this is always to be on every single exam, what is a project? You're going to definitely need to know that it's a temporary endeavor. But that's one of the questions that they will ask, it seems like, on any exam that you take. You'll need to understand project stakeholders, how they affect the project, what's required with a stakeholder, their expectations, organizational structures, what type of organization does your company have. That plays a big part in the type of projects that you will roll out. You'll also need to understand the difference between the product life cycle and the project life cycle. There's also a project management life cycle, so you'll need to understand the difference between those. Continuing on to number 2, project integration management. You'll need to understand the overview of project integration. developing the project charter, developing project management plan, the direct and manage project execution, the monitoring and control project work, the perform integration change control, and then of course the close project or phase. Number 3, the project scope management. That would be the overview of the project scope management, the collect requirements, the define scope, the create WBS, verify scope, and the control scope. Each one of these within the pin box, you'll find different sections that will talk about each one of these areas. Number 4, the project time management, an overview of project time management, the define activities, the estimate activity resources, your estimating activity duration, the develop schedule, and the control schedule. So those are the processes that you will need to understand. Any questions about these 4?
Lynn, I did have a question.
Yes.
I noticed I noticed that they had the project charter, but usually the project charter is within the scope statement. I just was wondering if there is a newer philosophy toward that. Are scope statements still part of what to study?
Yes. The charter is everything. It's still part of it, part of this exam, and considered part of the standard for any type of project.
Okay, thank you.
Project cost management, overview of project cost management, estimate costs, you determine the budget, and then control costs. There is another section under cost management that you'll need to understand. The project quality management, the overview of the project quality management, your plan quality, perform quality assurance, and then perform quality control. Number 7 would be the project human resource management. This is the overview of the project human resource management, the develop human resource plan, acquire project team, develop project team, and then also manage project team. There are some I've found that they'll actually ask you which comes first, say, on the project team. There's the develop project team comes before, the acquire. Usually you'll see some questions there, because sometimes when you start to think logically, you'll think that they're going to develop your project team first, and then from there, once you develop what you might want, you might think that you might acquire it later, but you're actually going to acquire the team before you develop it. So sometimes we'll have questions like that will switch around. Project communication management, overview of project communication management. One of the things, communication, you can never have enough of. So if you're going to opt for either more communication compared to less, you always want to go with the more communication. You can never over-communicate to the team or to the stakeholders or anybody who actually is part of the project. Identify the stakeholders, you'll need to understand that. Plan communications, you'll distribute information, manage stakeholder expectations, and then also report performance. Number 9, project risk management. This covers overview of the project risk management, plan risk management, identify risk, perform quality risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, plan risk response, and monitoring and controlling risk. Any questions regarding these 5? And then number 10, we have project procurement management. It's an overview of the project procurement management, plan procurement, administer procurement, close procurement. And then then 11 would be professional responsibility. This is where you get into professional responsibility would also be your ethics would fall under this section here. And when you think about different responsibilities and different ethics, the exam is going to look to questions that aren't considered something as far as ethics, not necessarily just within the U.S., it's globally. And how you would actually, if you were in one country, what might be considered on ethics, something might be considered wrong there. An example, I would guess it would be if, I guess the example I could use, in some countries, women are not allowed to drive, but they're expected to ride in the back seat. In the U.S., that's not the case. Same with different rules and different regulations with projects. There are different ethics and different things that you are required to know if you're actually going to be conducting or leading a project within another country. It's your responsibility to know the different rules or laws that they have governing your project or what your project might affect. So that's where it comes into the different responsibilities or as far as the professional side. Review. One of the things that I learned, once you've gone through and actually thoroughly studied everything within the 10 blocks and gone through your flashcard and you feel that you know everything really well, is to actually do what they consider a structured concentrated review. You'll take each one of these sections that I've mentioned and you'll spend 20 minutes studying it. You'll study whether you're going to study that chapter, just going through your notes, but only on that one section. Once that 20 minutes is over, you will go to the next section and then study that section for 20 minutes. And you will do that on each one of these knowledge areas. You will do this pretty much for a week prior to the exam. Once from there that you've gone through this, the day before the exam, you will actually take the day off. And what is recommended is that you just go and find something to do or actually do nothing, just relax. The whole idea is to actually rest your brain. You're not supposed to really be thinking about anything. You're supposed to just go and enjoy yourself. What they found is by taking this day off prior to an exam like this, you will actually be able to recall everything that you've been studying. What they've noticed is that if you actually study right up until that exam, there's a good chance that you're going to end up drawing a blank on certain areas. So they recommend that you go and do this concentrated review right before and then take the day off before the exam. So, taking the PMP exam, they do have the URL up here. They do have what they call a detailed blueprint, which can be found that's actually up on PMI, the PMP examination content outline. For the PMP, they've separated out the different areas, as they call the domains. You end up, which is the processes that you have up there, the 5 of them. You have initiation is 13%, so they pretty much say 13% of those questions will be on initiation. 24% will be planning. Executing will be 30%. And then monitoring and controlling 25%. And then the closing section is 8% to give you your 100%. The way that it works is there's a total of 200 questions on this exam. You will only be scored 475 of these questions. 25 of these questions are, you may be called pre-test questions, but you might find that you might have duplicate questions in there. It just means that you know you found one of the questions out of the 25 that is not going to be scored. They're also, with these pre-test questions, they're testing new questions to see how well people do on these questions, to see whether or not they're going to actually add it to part of the thousands of questions that they have in the system. The allotted examination time that you have is 4 hours. When you get into take this exam, you're going to end up going into a parametric testing facility that you'll schedule the time to go in there. When you arrive, it's best not to bring in a lot of things that you have on you. You're going to have to empty your pockets. If you have a sweater or jacket, you will be required to keep it on at all times. You cannot take it off during the test. They place it on the chair behind you. If you feel that you might not need it, then you need to actually lock it up along with your keys and everything in the locker that they will provide. And then you'll have the one single key that you could place on the desk that they will allow you to place there during the exam. They will provide, I believe it's 4 sheets of paper, and you will have 2 pencils that you are allowed to use during this exam when you sit down in front of the monitor and keyboard. Which I didn't include here for the CAPN, if you decide to go for that exam instead of the PNC, if you feel that you might not be able to go for the PNC at this time. The CAPM, I believe, is 135 questions that you need to pass. The difference between the PNP and the CAPM exam is that the ethics and professional responsibility is not part of that exam. However, it is part of the PNP. So that's the difference between the two. Everything else will be the same. Taking exams, it's going to include these different knowledge and skill areas. Part of it is active listening. Are questions and essays, questions are true and false types? Yes, some of them are. They're true and false. Some of them are multiple choice. And then some are that you may have 5 answers to a question, and you might need to choose from 1 to maybe 4 of them out of those 5 answers to get that question correct. Part of these active listening, brainstorming techniques you'll need to understand, conflict resolution techniques, cultural sensitivity and diversity, data gathering techniques, decision-making techniques, facilitation. This falls from facilitation, especially on how you run a meeting, using the CCC conference, how you would do the CA web, working with a virtual team, running a meeting that you are actually face-to-face with your team. What percent do you need to have to pass? You know, that's a good question. I can only go by rumor. Some say that you need 65% to 70% to pass. What I've always been told and what they recommend at these boot camps, if you can go through some of these questions, exams or sample exams that they have out there, then they recommend that you be able to pass every single one of those questions that you're practicing on at an 85% rate. What project management software? What is this in reference to? Is this in reference to projects that you would use in companies?
Lynn, I think he's talking about your list here under the cross-cutting knowledge and skills. So it's this one on your list.
Project management. Okay, software. That could be, as I mentioned before, it could be project manage. Yeah, the project management that you have for the class that you're taking currently through Microsoft Project, or it depends on the company. What they're wanting to know is that you've utilized a type of project management application and you understand how one of these works. But the majority of the people out there use the Microsoft Project. So as long as you know this application, I think it will help you tremendously. The different information management tools, techniques, and methods, leadership tools and techniques. You have negotiating, which is part of this, oral and written communication techniques, channels, and applications. And then, of course, the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Presentation tools and techniques, prioritization, time management. They'll cover problem-solving tools and techniques. And then we'll just talk about the project management software. The relationship management, how you relate to your team or other peers within the company that falls along with the project. It even comes down to actually where you may have to write a review for one of your resources managers on how they did on this project. So that even comes into play here. Stakeholder impact analysis, targeting communications to intended audiences. Example of what they mean by team stakeholders and customers is what you'll do is at the beginning of a project, you're going to complete a survey and you're going to find out from your team, your stakeholders, and your customers actually how do they want to receive their communication, what works best. You may have, say, for the 3 examples that are here, that each one of these has a different criteria on how they want to receive information. Some may want to receive it, say, example, by email. Others might actually want it in a report format, or be able to access it online within a SharePoint to access this information. This is stuff that you'll actually figure out when you start a project, and this is also part of the questions and different things. This is where they're going to be pulling from your experience. And then team motivation methods. How are you going to motivate that team to keep them going, especially on a resource, or I should say, I'm sorry, a project that is very long. One of the things that is different with going with the PMI, and also I would say with like the CFMs or the Agile projects. The Agile projects are very heavily into motivating your team, making sure that everybody's working at their top performance as quickly as possible, because they do everything in sprints, to where a project where PMP, or I should say on this exam, is concentrating on is more of a long-term project. They're looking at probably from 6 months to a year to 2 years to 3 years, depending on how large this project is. Taking the exam, what you should watch for when you go to take the exam. The exam will test your knowledge, application, and analysis. This will include the situational questions that I mentioned. This tests the real-world experience that you have, and this is where the ethics questions will appear within each one of those sections. Each test is different. The system will configure the test questions at the time you sit down to take the test. That is why pretty much no test is ever the same, because it is figured out by the system at the time you're going to take it. The day before the exam, as I mentioned, do not study, spend the day relaxing. This will help your memory retention. Do not plan on taking a lot with you to the exam. Watches, keys, jackets, sweaters, if not worn, purses, food will be locked up in a locker you cannot access them during the exam. Sometimes, because it's depending on the time that you schedule your exam, some people I've seen take some food, but if you do, you go and you leave the exam, you're going to sign out, or even to use the facility, you're going to sign out, you go into the next room, and they'll place like some food or something if they have to have something up on top of the lockers because you're not allowed to open those lockers. But then when you go back in, you're going to be, as they use the wand to make sure there's nothing or any metals or anything within your pocket. And then you go back in and then you empty your pockets again and you sign it and then you go back to the test. But during the time that once you left that test, or I should say once it started, your timer's still going. So you really only want to leave the exam if you need to. And otherwise, spend most of the time going and taking this exam. The idea, when you take practice exams, you want to be able to at least have a minimum of a half an hour that you'll be able to finish at least 200 questions and have a half an hour free. This pretty much will guarantee that you will be able to finish this exam within the allotted time period, because there's going to be different questions that you're going to receive. Some are going to be very short questions, and some will be kind of like a complete scenario, like a story that you'll be given, which will take quite a while to read. So each question can go from maybe taking you from 20 seconds to taking you maybe a couple minutes. So you don't know which question or how many you have, since each one of these are different. You have no idea what the system picks out for you. Only that there are short questions and then very long questions that you're going to have to answer to. Make sure you get, like I said, the full night of sleep and rest. That way you're not tired in the morning or when you take the test the next day. And also, once you complete the test, the exam, you'll be graded. During this time, it takes the system probably 2 minutes to grade your exam. And then it will also ask you some questions on what you thought about the exam. It'll be a little short survey. If you pass the exam, or even if you don't pass the exam, what will happen to you once you leave the room, the testing area, you'll go out, you'll sign out, and they'll actually print everything for you in your score. You will not know where you failed if you failed the exam. The only thing that it will show you is that which area, as far as the planning or initiation or executing, those different areas that will show you kind of a percentage that you did within that test, that exam, of how well you did. But it's not going to give you a direct score. Any questions?
Lynn, you said to allow kind of a half hour just to review your questions and stuff. Is that what you said? I'm sorry if I.
When you're studying for this exam, you're going to be wanting to study with at least a minimum of 200 questions.
Okay.
That you can take. You're gonna want to time yourself. Before you even get to this part that you actually go to take the exam, you're only going to want to take 200 questions and be able to complete that test within 3 hours and 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And if you could speed up your time before that, that would be great.
Okay.
The reasoning for this is because of the questions that you may receive during the exam, because you don't know whether if you're going to get a lot of short questions or very long ones. This can eat up your time. And if you're not quick enough answering these questions, what will happen is you'll actually run out of time.
Okay, thank you. And when you finished, you had enough time and you felt pretty good about it after you, obviously you must have because you passed, but you felt pretty good about it afterwards, so.
Actually, it took me 3 times to pass.
It took you what?
3 times. I passed on my
Third try, yeah. So,
my 3rd try.
and
yes.
each test was probably the 3rd, yeah, and so you could have had a really difficult first test, is that right?
I actually, the first 2 tests that I took, I found to be very, very difficult. I really shouldn't have taken the first one that I did. When I did it, I wasn't ready for it. I was trying to get it completed before they had changed the exam, and I should have not taken it at the time that I did. You need to really be sure of yourself that you feel that you're really ready to take this, and not because something might be changing or trying to get through with this because you've spent so much time studying. As far as feeling whether or not I did well, the first time I did not know. The second time when I went through, I found that it was very difficult, but I thought I did well, and I thought I did well enough to pass. No, that's not me in the picture. And then the third time, I actually found the test to be very easy. But that could have been because of all the extra studying and everything and really cramming, I think, by that time.
Yeah, and you have up to, what, 3 times within the application process to take it, is that correct?
Within that one, yeah, within that year.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, Lynn, this has just been really helpful, and I really want to thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted me to refer to in the Excel documents, or?
Oh yes, we can go. Why don't we pull up the Excel and I can show them in Excel.
Sorry. Let me share those now. Okay. Which one did you want to look at first?
This one is just one of the samples that you can use for a project. Putting the date there, project name on the top left-hand corner, and actually just keeping track of your hours.
Okay.
It does have some instructions on it. These are just different spreadsheets that I've collected from different people that we've utilized. So this can actually help you keep track with the hours that you're going to utilize. I believe there's another one, I think, if we pull up.
Do you want me to pull up the other document?
Yeah, bring up the one for the PMT experience record that I sent that one over to you.
Do you see that now?
Yeah. This is actually what's going to help you with filling out your application. And I think for the different projects there, if we go to under the sheet there next to project, we're on project now. If we go to, I think, experience documentation onto that sheet next there, what this is going to do is, as you can see, you can, for each column here, you can set up a different project. So, for example, it says example, that would say be your first project. This will calculate, once you put under each one of these, this is what your application is going to be similar to this. If you think about project selection methods or evaluate the feasibility of the new products or services, if you actually did that within this project that you're going to use for your application, and say you spent 1 hour doing that, you can put a 1 there. And for each one of these, as you go through the spreadsheet, you'll be able to read it and say, did I actually do this in this project? You will not, probably within your projects that you do, you will not put time towards every one of these. Normally, unless this is a very, very large project and that's going on for quite a while, then that might actually have time towards every one of these areas. But what this is doing is this will help you transfer over to your actual application. And one of the things I didn't mention there is when you do take this exam or when actually you're studying, PMI looks at projects as very, very large projects. Never think of as an exam that you're doing this for a small project that's only going to take you 2 months. This is something, and the way that they test is always for a large project, not a small project. So if you keep that in the back of your mind, of always thinking that way, then you should be able to answer the questions that way also.
But Lynn, but you try to, I mean, you're submitting as many hours listed on a project as possible, so you should include your smaller ones as well. Is that correct?
Well, unless you want to. If you need hours, if you don't have a lot of experience, you're going to put whatever you can to get up to those hours.
Okay. But if you have a choice,
So,
keep it limited to the longer projects. Is that right?
Keep it to the longer ones, but you can put the smaller ones in there. I did. I actually ended up with a very long
Okay.
that I had to fill out. It took takes a couple of days to actually fill out that application. You're actually entering everything that they're requiring of you.
So even if so the good advice to everybody is whether you anticipate taking the PMP exam or not anticipate, keep track of all of your hours because it'll really help you remember this if you ever submit your application. Is that right?
That is correct. The other thing that I would recommend is that as long as it's not proprietary, start yourself a portfolio.
Okay. Now,
if you have
and now, Lynn, these documents are not proprietary because I made them available to the students. Is that okay still?
That is fine. You can go ahead and
okay.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for providing those. Those are very helpful. So, so you guys, those are in a folder in week 9, and so if you want to access those along with Lynn's PowerPoint, it's there. So, okay. Lynn, any other comments to make, or are you, Bal, Saman, Shakir? I think we lost Kaplash. Do you have any other questions? And Lynn, I'm recording this so the students will be able to hear this again. So. Okay. Well, this is okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and we'll be in touch after this. I have a couple things I need to just talk to my students about related to this week's lesson, and I don't think you want to hear that again.
No, I will drop off.
Hey, thank you, Lynn, and I want to follow up with you on this. So, but thank you so much. This was really. We had another person present on this. 2 other people presented on this topic, and yours was by far the most complete. So I really, really appreciate this. This was just awesome. Thank you.
I am glad to help. Thanks.
Okay, Lynn. Have a great evening and have a great Christmas season too, or holiday season. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, you guys. I'm going to go back to the whiteboard now, and thank you for coming. This is our other agenda, and I won't take a long time because we did go over a little bit over, but I hope you found that very, very complete and helpful. I mean, even if you never take the PMP exam, you kind of know at least what's in store, and they really put you through quite a large process. I think one thing you have to think about is our class really focuses more on the nitty-gritty of the how to, do Microsoft projects. Our focus is on Microsoft project with a little bit of theory of project management. whereas the PMP is really more interested in testing you of your knowledge of project management principles, and again, all of those knowledge areas. So it's a little bit different. So let's see. Just a couple announcements. I have had a problem with connecting with Visio Pro, so tonight I will make sure that you guys get that link. Again, read the same EULA, and then just tell me which version you downloaded, whether it was 32-bit or 64-bit, and then I will provide you with the access code. Okay? So I do have all the access codes. It's just that the way my server works, I could not get to it the last couple days because I was on wireless. So I'll have that available tonight. I'll have those links available. And then next week is our last CCC Confer. We're going to go over chapters 15 and 17 and what will be on the final exam. And I have those. This stuff is at the end of tonight. So we already did that with Lynn. And let's see. Last week discussion forum. I don't think there was problems with that. You guys, what I saw so far on the chapter 13 was very good, and you were able to do that stoplight one on the cost variance, which worked out good. And status report is due this week on December 1st, and this week's discussion was on status reports. And one of the things I wanted to focus on that was oh, by the way, can you guys see the whiteboard right now? Do you see that? I should have checked it. Or did it not go through? Are you seeing the whiteboard now? Oh, you are. Good. Okay. Just remember about the status reports. Remember, one of the things, I know I gave you about 4 different websites to go to, but one of the things, whatever you do is, each company is going to have their own version, or you're going to have your own version. Just be consistent. Use the same template over and over, because that is what stakeholders like to see, is that kind of consistency. And so, anyway, let's see. Just a little bit on Chapter 14. I know some of you have started on this. This is pretty straightforward, but it just focuses on 3 ways to get your project back on track. And one of the first things they look at is, reducing, time, and then costs, and then scope. So. But one of the things you really need to do, and these are just some general principles, this goes back into kind of the principles of project management, is make sure that you confer with your team members of how to address these things if your project is getting out of whack, whether there's a big variance in cost or time or scope. And then realize that something might have to be sacrificed, right? Remember what we said about the project triangle, where you're trying to keep all of these in balance? Well, sometimes that's impossible. If you have to meet, your deadline, you might have to increase your costs, right? Because you may have to add some more people. If you want to meet the deadline, you may have to reduce the scope of the project. You may have to eliminate some things, like they show you in the example in the book. So any other things that you could do that if you're behind and over budget, what else could you do? Any other things? We would spend more time on this, but tonight, since we had this session. But anyway, your book gives you some ideas on that. And so you have to think kind of like a project manager of what are some things to do to get things back running. Maybe reducing time of some tasks, maybe making some tasks start at the same time, and putting in less expensive people for costs and stuff. It talks about also adding overtime work, and they show you how to do that. And I think everybody has Project Professional. Just remember, just continue with step 5. Don't do step 6. Or did I get that reversed? Oh shoot! Oh Please forgive me if I got that reversed. Let me see. This is one of those where it might be do as I say, not as I have listed there. Yes, this is correct. Don't go to step 6 because that involves deleting it instead of inactivating it. Okay, and we had to practice with that before. Final project assignment. This Sunday will be your first status report, and then in 2 weeks or within 2 weeks, you're going to turn in your final project assignment. Make sure that you've updated your tasks and your resources and your % of work completed and any milestones, then make any previously suggested corrections, and then your final status report, just like this first one, only there'll be a number in the next one. And everything's due basically December 15th, and you'll submit both files in the final project folder, okay? So this Sunday is your first status report, and then your next one isn't really due for another 2 weeks, okay? And then your final exam, well, I'm going to talk more about that next week, but just to give you an idea, it's going to cover chapter 6 through 10, 12 through 15, and 17. Appendices A and B in your book. It's about 35 questions. You have 2.5 hours to complete it. I cannot give your exam before final exam starts, and final exams start on Monday, December 10th. So I'll make it available Sunday night at 12:01, and then you have until Saturday, and it's worth about 25% of your overall grade. Okay, but next week we'll talk a little bit more about the final exam and then cover the last 2 parts on 15 and 17. Okay, I think that is all. So that's all I have tonight. I'm sorry I had to rush through, but we spent a long time on the other part, which I think was very helpful. So thank you guys for coming to hear Lynn, and I will stop recording if you have any other questions. So thank you for coming. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.